Rahim, dear students, Assalamu alaikum. This is Yunus Khan and I am here to present a new topic from the biology of course second year. Our next topic that is the lower respiratory tract. We in the previous class discussed that the respiratory system of man is divided into two main parts. The one part of the respiratory system is the upper respiratory tract, which includes nostrils, nasal cavities and pharynx. That has been discussed. Now we are talking about the lower respiratory tract, which includes larynx, then trachea, after trachea bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli and lungs. All these things will be discussed here in the lower respiratory tract. So first of all, coming towards the larynx, which is also called as voice box, or this may also be called as sound box. Voice box or sound box. It is called as sound box or voice box because it helps in the production of voice or sound. How that sound is produced, we will talk about later, inshallah. First of all, before going into the detail, we are going to talk a little bit about its structure. What is larynx? This is the whole diagram which have been presented on the board already, that has been drawn. This is the larynx or sound box or voice box. A larynx or voice box is a tubular pathway or tubular cavity which is enclosed into cartilaginous plates that are connected together by special membranes and fibers and muscles. The larynx has two main parts. The upper part of the cartilaginous plates, that is also called as thyroid cartilage. This is also called as thyroid cartilage. Thyroid cartilage. Its lower part or posterior part may also be called as cricoid cartilage. As far as the thyroid cartilage is concerned, the front set of the thyroid cartilage, that is a little bit forming a ridge-like structure. This ridge-like structure may also be termed as the Adam's apple. That may also be called as Adam's apple. Okay, I have told you that this is made of a cartilaginous band or cartilaginous plates. These are formed of the cartilaginous plates just before the 16 years old of a baby. When a baby grows up till 20 years, till 20 years of age, this is in the form of cartilage. After that, these plates are converted into bony structures. They are converted into bony structures. This cartilaginous or bony structure of the larynx helps the structure to prevent it from being collapsed, and to keep the opening in open form and to keep the transfer of air in and out in a continuous way. So this is the function of the cartilaginous structure. Now it is said that the cavity inside the larynx, that is called as the glottis. This is called as glottis. This is glottis. Above the glottis there is a lid which is called as epiglottis. Epiglottis. Now what is function of the epiglottis? Epi means above, glottis, that is the cavity here. So this is a lid present above the glottis. This epiglottis helps to seize the pathway of the respiratory tract during swallowing of any food particles or drinking of any fluids. Whenever we drink or eat any kind of food, at that time what happens, our breathing system stops. At that time our breathing system stops and swallowing or drinking starts. During swallowing or drinking, our breathing system stops. Why? Because at that time this lid covers the glottis. This lid covers the glottis and the food or the fluids, any kind of fluids or liquids that pass on to the esophagus, and through esophagus that is reached to the stomach. Okay, so that is the role of the epiglottis. Okay, next further, about the size of the larynx. So it is said that the larynx is about 2 inches 2 inches are about 5 centimeter long. It is 2 inches or 5 centimeter long, and sometimes it is said that about 1.5 to 2 centimeter in diameter. 1.5 to 2 centimeter in diameter. This is about the size of the larynx. Furthermore, the larynx play a very important role in the function of the respiratory tract, that is breathing, and along with that another function with respect to the voice. So therefore we can say that the larynx perform two main functions. If we talk about the functions of the larynx, so this larynx can have two main functions. There are two main functions of the larynx. Sometimes we say that this is a fact that it performs a role in the entry and transfer of the air to and from the lungs. When we try to inhale air, this air is transferred passing through the larynx, and if we exhale that air, so the air coming or the carbon dioxide coming from our lungs, that also passing through the larynx. So larynx, its one function is the transfer of air to and from the lungs. Okay, before that we must have to talk about its location as well. We have talked about the size of the larynx, its other names, and the structure of the larynx. It contains thyroid cartilage as well as cricoid cartilages. The thyroid cartilage, front set of the thyroid cartilage, that forms a ridge-like structure. Which is called as Adam's apple. And this is, I have told you that this is made of cartilage before 20 years of age. After 20 years of age onward, this cartilaginous plate is converted into bony cells or bony structures. Okay, so now along with that we have to talk about its location as well. Usually the larynx is located in the neck region. That is said that larynx is located in the neck. It is located in the neck region, between the pharynx and the trachea. Here above the larynx is pharynx and below it is the trachea. So it is located in the neck region between the pharynx and the trachea. Between the pharynx and the trachea, which is also called as windpipe. That will be discussed later on into the topic of the trachea. It have to be discussed over there. So this is about the location of the larynx. Next on, the larynx performs two main functions. I have told you that it performs two main functions. Two functions or roles are being performed by the larynx. One of the function is the transfer of the air to and from the lungs. So one of the functions is it helps in the transfer of air to and from the lungs during breathing. For example, during breathing, when we inhale the air containing oxygen, or when we exhale the air containing carbon dioxide, both of them, these inhalation and exhalation, they are performed by the larynx. The larynx provides a pathway for that. Acha. Okay, now other than that, second function of the larynx, that is concerned with its second name, that is voice box or the sound box. Usually if we take the diagram, internal diagram of the larynx, so what is there? This is, for example, the larynx, a section over there. Inside the larynx there are two bands. there are two bands. These bands are made of membranous structures. These are membranous bands. These membranous bands are called as vocal cords. These are called as vocal cords. The vocal cords help in the vocal property. It helps in the production of the sound. What happens during production of the sound? Air rushes from the, or we can say the air is pumped from the lungs towards the larynx, where that air vibrates these bands, and because of vibration, I think you must have studied in physics that vibration produces sound or voice. So when these vocal cords are vibrated by the air pumped by the lungs, so at that time what happens, a sound is produced. That sound comes out, and with the help of lips, cheeks and tongue, etc., we convert that sample sound into words. Words are then formed. So this is the second function being performed by the larynx. The second function, its second function is to produce sound or voice with the help of vibration of vocal cords, that is done by the air pumped from the lungs. When the lungs pumps the air, that air comes here and it vibrates the vocal cords present here, and it produces sound, and that sound is then converted into words, and in this way voice or sound is produced, and that is the second function of the larynx. So two main functions are being performed by the larynx. One is it helps in the transfer of the air. It provides a pathway for the transfer of the air from or to or from the lungs, and second function is the production of the sound. So this is a little bit about the larynx, or first part of the lower respiratory tract, LRT. The second part, that is a long tube like structure which is called as trachea. That is called as trachea. From here till here, this portion is called as the trachea. Okay, trachea may also be called as windpipe. That may also be called as windpipe because it is a long pipe through which air is transported towards the lungs and from the lungs away during exhalation. This is also called as windpipe. Coming towards its what we can say size, so it is said that the windpipe or trachea is about 4 inches. 4 inches long. It is about 4 inches long, and usually it is said that 10 to 12 millimeter in diameter. 2 to 12 millimeter in diameter. So this is the size, length and width of the trachea. This is length and the width of the trachea. The whole trachea is made of its structure. It is made of, we can say, it is made of 16 to 20 horseshoe shaped, or you can say C-shaped, horseshoe shaped or C-shaped cartilaginous rings. These are also cartilaginous, means made of cartilage. Cartilaginous rings. These rings opens on the back side. Okay, so this is about the structure of the trachea. About 16 to 20 C-shaped rings, cartilaginous rings are there. These are those cartilaginous rings. So the number of these C-shaped the number of these C-shaped cartilaginous rings in adult human being, that is from some say from 16 to 20, some say from 15 to 20. So they are 15 or 16 to 20 in number. This is about the structure of the trachea, and size of the trachea has also been discussed over here. Inside the trachea, the lining of the trachea, lining, if we talk about the lining of the trachea contains a mucous membrane, and cilia. It contains a mucous membrane and cilia. It must be clear to you, because this has been told during the nasal cavities, that the mucous membrane helps to produce mucus, and cilia are also present there. The cilia and the mucus perform a special function here. Both of them help in the trapping of the dust particles and the germs or pathogens over here again. So if during inhalation some of the pathogens or dust particles escape the mucous membrane, mucus releasing from the mucous membrane and cilia present in the nasal cavity, if that escape here, then in the trachea what happens, that is trapped by the cilia and the mucous membrane. So here this cilia and mucus perform what? A role of trapping. It traps the pathogens and particulate matter and particles, dust particles, etc. So in this way a clean air is then conveyed towards the lungs, and there here in the lungs exchange of gases takes place. How that takes place when we reach here in the lungs, that will be discussed over there. So this is about the mucous membrane and cilia. The internal lining, the wall of the trachea is lined on the inner side by the mucous membrane, and cilia are also present over there. Okay, one thing which must also be clear over there, mucous membrane and cilia here, these are very sensitive. Both of them are very sensitive, and during drinking or eating, whenever accidentally, for example, if some drops of fluids or some food particles are entered accidentally, so what happens if they are entered, the sensitivity of the mucous membrane and cilia cause coughing. It causes coughing, and these coughing are started, the human beings cough till the removal of those small droplets of fluids or small pieces of the food back. So what happens, these cilia and mucous membrane perform a very important role because they are sensitive to all these things. And one thing should be clear over there, if these were not sensitive and coughing was not caused, so by the entry, it is said, by the entry of the water droplets or any fluids and or by the entry of any food particles, when these things are reached to the lungs, death is caused. So that is very dangerous for the health. So Almighty Allah has produced a very protective mechanism over here in the form of mucous membrane and cilia, which are very sensitive to that. So this is about the sensitivity function of the mucous membrane and cilia. Okay, now when the cilia and mucous membrane perform its role in trapping the pathogens and particles, what happens? This mucus, pathogens and dust particles are mixed up, they form a mixture, and that is then released from the trachea, that is brought to the pharynx, and that is then removed, either swallowed or either removed, that is either swallowed or removed in the form of sputum. So what happens if these are trapped, a mixture is formed and that is released in the form of sputum. So this is about what the trachea, its function. Another function of the trachea, it performs a role as a windpipe. So this is one of the function. Another function of the trachea is that it performs a role as a pipe, to give way for the transfer of inhaling or exhaling air. So when the air is inhaled or exhaled, that helps in the transfer of that air from or towards the lungs. Okay, the C shape, another thing, as I have told you that the cartilaginous or bony place here in the larynx helps to prevent the structure from being collapsed. Similarly, the cartilaginous rings also, C-shaped rings also help in the prevention of the whole trachea from being collapsed. So that is function of the C-shaped rings, and this is whole story about the larynx and trachea. Okay, so this is enough for today. I think rest of that, after trachea, bronchi and the lungs, bronchus, alveoli, etc., they have to be discussed next time in the next video. But one thing should be noted over here about bronchi. One thing came into mind about the bronchi. The trachea with two bronchi, form a tree-like structure. It is a tree-like structure. This tree-like structure, which is made by the trachea and the two bronchi, this is called as bronchial. This is called as bronchial tree. Bronchial tree. So we will not talk about the bronchial tree, that will be discussed next time, because the bronchial tree contains trachea as well as two bronchi, the primary bronchi. There are then types of the bronchi, primary bronchi and so on, secondary and tertiary. So the primary bronchi and the trachea form a tree-like structure which is called as bronchial tree. So this is enough for today. Rest of the things will be discussed in the next video, inshallah. Till next video, thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.